In the deep past, the Earth was not ours alone. It is a world almost impossible to imagine now. A world where you could walk from one valley to the next and encounter a different kind of human. For most of our history, we shared this planet. We were not the sole inheritors. We were merely one branch on a sprawling family tree of intelligent, tool-wielding hominids. By the unwritten and often brutal laws of evolutionary development, competition is won by the most adaptable, not always the most powerful. Today we stand as the only human species on the planet, but at the dawn of our emergence, our distant ancestors faced a crowded field of contenders for that title. Between 5 and perhaps 8 distinct human species coexisted at various times, each a unique experiment in what it meant to be human. Man-world staged long before us. They had a profound head start. For hundreds of thousands of years, they had adapted to their climates, perfected their survival strategies, and mastered the art of crafting tools from stone and bone. When our ancestors, the Cro-Magnons, began their slow migration out of Africa, they were stepping into a world already claimed. So how did the newcomers prevail? Their ultimate weapon, it seems, was not forged from flint, but from something unseen. It was the architecture of their minds. A more developed intellect, coupled with an unprecedented level of socialization, became their decisive advantage. Constant environmental changes encountered during their global expansion acted as a relentless catalyst, honing these abilities to a razor's edge. There is a compelling theory that our ancestors were masters of observation and innovation. They could watch their established rivals, learn their skills, and then rapidly improve upon them. But Thiffic displacement. Cro-Magnon society, bound by complex language and shared beliefs, could organize in larger, more cohesive groups. They simply outcompeted the others for territory and resources, pushing them into more and more marginal lands where survival became untenable. The original inhabitants were forced to make do with the scraps, or move on, until there was nowhere left to go. We must be careful, of course. The fossil record is an incomplete story, and scientists cannot always pinpoint the exact timelines of these related species. It is not a certainty that our ancestors were directly responsible for every extinction. The planet's own volatile climate shifts undoubtedly played their own devastating role. Yet, the pattern remains. Wherever Homo sapiens arrived, the other humans eventually disappeared. We are the sole survivors of a once crowded human family, the last echo of a chorus that has long since fallen silent. And one is left to wonder if we won our place through simple fortune, superior ingenuity, or something far more ruthless. From the sun-scorched heart of the African continent, between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago, a new kind of human being looked out upon the savannah. They were us, Homo sapiens. For millennia, Africa was their entire world, a vast cradle that shaped their minds and bodies. Then, around 50,000 years ago, something changed. A new restlessness, a new curiosity, or perhaps a new necessity drove them outward. They left the continent of their birth and began a journey that would ultimately encompass the entire planet. The world they entered was not empty. It was populated by our cousins, other human species who had made their own journeys out of Africa tens of thousands of years before. Gone. A planet that had hosted a diverse family of human species for eons was now home to only one. They were either systematically eradicated or pushed out by the new masters of the world into regions so desolate they were simply unfit for life. Of course, the story may be more complex. It's possible that some were not simply conquered, but absorbed. The proof for this theory of assimilation may lie dormant within every one of us. Our very DNA carries the faint genetic echoes of these other peoples, a whisper of a shared past. Though a vocal minority of scientists remains unconvinced, suggesting these shared genes are merely a legacy from a much older common ancestor, and that true interbreeding between these distinct species was an impossibility.
Whatever the truth of their disappearance, the success of the Cro-Magnon, our direct ancestors, was undeniable. They moved in sophisticated groups, building shelters from stretched animal hides, digging earthen lodges for warmth, or claiming the deep security of caves. They were masters of their environment, clothing themselves in tailored skins to ward off the biting cold of the Ice Age. But their most profound advantage was not a tool of stone or bone. It was the power of complex speech, the ability to plan, to coordinate, to share abstract ideas. This revolutionary skill transformed the hunt from a desperate scramble into a highly organized, strategic operation. This newfound cohesion allowed them to bring down prey of an unimaginable scale. The colossal mammoths, the thundering herds of deer, titans of the Ice Age that no lone hunter could ever face.
Their ingenuity was relentless. They developed an arsenal of specialized tools and devices that gave them an edge in any environment. The spear thrower, a deceptively simple lever of wood or bone, could launch a projectile more than 120 meters, turning a close-quarters risk into a ranged kill. They wove intricate snares to catch small animals and birds, and for the rivers and coastlines, they carved elegant harpoons and sharpened hooks, unlocking the vast protein source hidden beneath the water. And in this era, a crucial alliance was forged. Evidence suggests it was then that we first domesticated the dog, gaining not just a companion, but a hunter, a guard, and a friend. Yet, perhaps the most startling evidence of their advancement is what they did with their free time. The finds associated with Cro-Magnon cultural life speak volumes. They left us a legacy of breathtaking art, vivid paintings that flicker to life by torchlight on cavern walls, intricate personal ornaments, and even small carved toys for their children. Their burial rituals were complex, suggesting a belief system, a sense of a world beyond the one they knew. All of this points to a revolutionary truth. For the first time in human history, a species could dedicate significant time to pursuits entirely unrelated to the daily, brutal struggle for survival. They had time to think, to create, to wonder. What, then, could the other human species possibly offer in opposition to this wave of organization, technology, and abstract thought? Consider the case of Homo naledi. Until recently, the remains of this enigmatic human relative, discovered deep within a cave system in South Africa, were thought to be ancient ghosts, long extinct before the first Homo sapiens ever walked the land. But new dating has delivered a shock. These bones are only 200,000 to 300,000 years old. This means they were there. They were contemporaries of the very first members of our species. Theoretically, they could have met. And yet, the silence from the cave is deafening. We have their bones and their skulls, but nothing else. There are no tools, no remnants of clothing, no traces of fire or food. It is as if they were ghosts even then. Their anatomy suggests a creature closer to the much earlier Australopithecines, with hands and shoulders still perfectly adapted for climbing in trees. They were a more primitive form of human, a living relic from an older world, somehow surviving alongside the dawn of the new. What chance did they have? What conversation could there have been between a people who painted masterpieces on cave walls and a people who left behind nothing but their bones?
Their story, and the story of all the others who vanished, serves as a stark reminder of the relentless forward march of our own lineage. We stand today as the sole inheritors of the planet, the last human species left. We are the result of a process of expansion that was as brilliant as it was, perhaps, brutal. We carry within us a legacy of both breathtaking creativity and, perhaps, a terrible, final solitude. The very structure of their legs was a testament to endurance, a biological blueprint for the long march. They were built for epic transitions, for covering vast, unforgiving landscapes, and, when necessary, for running with surprising speed. This was Homo heidelbergensis, the Heidelberg man. For a long time, we have wrestled with their place in our story, wondering if perhaps this was the great junction, the evolutionary crossroads from which the paths of Neanderthals and our own ancestors, the sapiens, finally diverged.
Heidelberg man bore little resemblance to the people of today. It was a face from a forgotten world, dominated by massive bony ridges above the eyes, a jaw that sloped away without the hint of a chin, and a skull of formidable thickness crowned by a low, receding forehead. And yet, within that heavy skull was a brain not so different from our own, its volume approaching the modern human range. They stood tall, some reaching heights of 175 centimeters, their dental arch almost indistinguishable from ours. The story of this species, according to the scattered clues left in bone and stone, began in the crucible of Africa, somewhere between 800,000 and 500,000 years ago. From there, they began their great dispersal, spreading across the breadth of Eurasia. It is believed that for millennia, the African and European branches of Heidelberg man were cut off from one another, two great rivers of humanity flowing in parallel, each developing independently. The last known traces of them date to roughly 130,000 years ago. This timeline is staggering, for it means they were still here when our own direct ancestors were taking their first tentative steps onto the world stage. They could have met. Despite their archaic appearance, the Heidelberg people possessed a profound intelligence. The evidence is undeniable. They were masters of fire. They crafted primitive yet effective tools. There are even tantalizing hints that they were the first to affix stone points to spears, a revolutionary leap in hunting technology. Perhaps they even knew a nascent form of art, and more movingly, they seem to have shown compassion, caring for the old and the infirm members of their clans. They lived and moved in groups, perhaps several dozen strong, working in concert to bring down the colossal beasts of their epoch. But for every population that expanded, that conquered a continent, others found their worlds shrinking. For some ancient human groups, the Great Dispersal ended not in a new horizon, but in the isolation of an island. The island of Java, a unique branch of humanity who lived there approximately 100,000 years ago. Over countless generations of isolation, they developed features so distinct they became their own, as a cautionary tale of slow degradation and, finally, extinction. It seems that an existence of relative ease, with plentiful food and few dangers, left them tragically unprepared. When a new predator arrived, or a new, more adaptable competitor appeared on their shores, they simply could not withstand the pressure. A similar fate, though perhaps even more dramatic, befell the people of the island of Flores. Their journey into isolation expressed itself in a startling reduction in size of both their bodies and their brains. They first arrived on this island nearly 1 million years ago, but by the time they vanished just 50,000 years ago, something extraordinary had happened. Over the final 450,000 years of their existence, their brain shrank by more than half. Some researchers believe a cataclysmic eruption of a local volcano sealed their fate, wiping them from existence in a blanket of ash. But there is another, more chilling possibility. It is entirely plausible that the last of these hobbits of Flores were systematically destroyed by a new arrival, Homo sapiens. Then, in the midst of their relentless push across the islands of the Pacific, a great wave of migration on its way to the Australian continent. These lost cousins, these ghosts in our family tree, serve as a stark reminder that our own survival was never guaranteed. It is merely one outcome among many that could have been. And they were not the last of these ghosts to be found. For in the frigid caves of Siberia, another shadow was waiting to be discovered.
The story of humanity is not a simple line of succession, but a sprawling, tangled tree, its branches reaching for the light, with many withering in shadow. For millennia, we were not alone. The Earth was home to other kinds of people, other ways of being human. Most have vanished, becoming silent footnotes in the deep history of the planet. They are the lost tribes, the dead-end branches, and yet, in the most unexpected ways, they are still with us. Our journey begins on the ancient plains of what we now call Kenya and Tanzania, between 2.5 and 1.5 million years ago. Here, a new kind of hominid emerged, one that would change the course of life on Earth forever. First described in 1964, we call them Homo habilis, the handyman. For a long time, they were considered the very first architects of technology, the first to look at a stone and see not a rock, but a tool. While they shared many features with their less massive Australopithecine cousins, a revolution was happening inside their skulls. The cranial vault was becoming more rounded, the brain cavity expanding to an estimated 650 grams prognathus, a faint echo of the faces that would one day look to the stars. And with these new minds and hands came a profound shift in diet. Our earlier ancestors were largely vegetarian. Habilis, it seems, was the first to become a true omnivore, adding meat to its diet, a high-energy fuel that would power the very expansion of the brain that set us on our path. Much later, in a far colder world, another human story was unfolding. In the harsh landscapes of Ice Age Europe, the Neanderthals thrived. The popular image of them as brutish, hunched cavemen is a profound injustice, a caricature written by the victors. The truth is far more compelling. Long before our own Homo sapiens ancestors arrived, the Neanderthals were masters of this unforgiving realm. They stitched clothing from animal hides to ward off the biting cold. They crafted sophisticated tools for the hunt and for daily life, and they possessed a world of the mind. They created art and held rituals, the first glimmers of religion, and a life beyond mere survival. They were a successful, resilient people. And then, we came.
The encounter between the Cro-Magnons, our direct ancestors, and the Neanderthals has been the subject of endless speculation. Of films and novencestors may have been more intellectually developed, their tribes larger, their social networks more complex. We simply squeezed them out, pushing them into ever more marginal lands. Perhaps a changing climate, a general cooling of the world, delivered the final blow. They were a people already on the edge, and nature, along with a new competitor, pushed them over. In the fossil record, a heartbreaking clue remains. Of all the Neanderthal bones ever found, nearly 90% belong to children. It is the signature of a population in collapse, a people starving, unable to sustain themselves through the hardship. Their extinction was a tragedy in which our own ancestors almost certainly played a role. And then, there are the ghosts. From a single cave in the Altai Mountains of Siberia, a place called Denisova, a new and profoundly mysterious human has emerged. Discovered only recently, we know the Denisovans not from a gallery of skulls, but from the barest of fragments, a finger bone, a few massive teeth, and the powerful story told by their DNA. What we know suggests a people with dark skin and dark hair who inhabited a vast range across all of Eastern Asia. But details of their lives, their skills, their thoughts are almost entirely lost to time.
Yet their legacy is undeniable. We know they shared the world with Neanderthals and even had children with them.
More profoundly, their genes did not vanish from the Earth. They have been found woven into the DNA of some modern human populations, a silent echo of ancient encounters. It's entirely possible the Denisovans were not so much wiped out as they were absorbed, assimilated into the rising tide of our own species. We walk the Earth alone now, the sole survivors of this great and at times bizarre human experiment. We look back at these lost relatives, the toolmaker, the Ice Age survivor, the Siberian ghost, and we see reflections of ourselves. Their stories did not truly end with their extinction. They ended by becoming part of our story, their genetic legacy carried within billions of us today. We are not one people, but a mosaic, a living chronicle built from the dust and dreams of those who came before. And in our every cell, we carry the silent memory of worlds we never knew.
The face was beginning to change. In the deep past of East Africa, a new kind of hominin was emerging from the long shadow of the Australopithecines. Here, the nasal cavity pushed forward, while the cheekbones seemed to retreat, sculpting a profile that was subtly, yet profoundly different. Their jaws were smaller, less imposing than those of their ancestors, and the teeth they held told a remarkable story. While still larger than those of the deep of an evolutionary current pulling our lineage toward a new destiny.
Despite a more slender frame, their body proportions and limbs still echoed the past, mirroring the Australopithecines they were leaving behind. Their feet were practically flat, lacking the pronounced shock-absorbing arch that would define modern humans. The toes were short, but critically, the great toe was no longer splayed out to the side for grasping. It was pulled in, fully aligned with the others, a foot committed entirely to walking the earth upright. They were not giants. An adult stood no more than 120 centimeters tall, weighing a mere 40 to 50 kilograms. But what they lacked in stature, they were beginning to gain in intellect.
Within the skull of Homo habilis, something extraordinary was happening. This was the dawn of a turbulent, explosive growth in the size and complexity of the ancestral brain. And with this expansion came a revolutionary idea: to take one stone and strike it against another, not by accident, but with purpose. They were the first to systematically manufacture stone tools, an innovation so profound it earned them their very name, the handyman. They are the architects of what we now call the Oldowan tradition, the earliest pebble tool culture, first unearthed in the 1960s from the fossil-rich sediments of Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. With these simple, sharp-edged flakes and choppers, they could butcher carcasses, crush bones for marrow, and process tough plant matter. Their diet was a mosaic of the landscape: nuts, roots, and fruits, supplemented with the flesh of small animals. And perhaps, just perhaps, they huddled around the first controlled fires, their simple stone knives a testament to a mind beginning to impose its will upon the world.
Yet, this burgeoning new intelligence was not alone on the African savanna.
At approximately the same time, between 2 and 2.5 million years, and Ethiopia belonged to a species we call Homo rudolfensis. The first clue to its existence was a single, incomplete skull discovered near the shores of Kenya's Lake Rudolph. It was described in 1968 by the Soviet anthropologist Valery Pavlovich Alexeyev, who initially proposed the name Pithecanthropus rudolfensis. Later analysis would place it firmly within our own genus, Homo, but its precise relationship to us remains a deep and tantalizing mystery. Was this another of our distant grandfathers, or a cousin on a side branch of the family tree? A fascinating evolutionary experiment that ultimately faded into extinction.
Outwardly, Homo rudolfensis bore a family resemblance to the handyhere were differences. The back of the skull, the occiput, was massive and protruded distinctly backward. And inside that skull was a brain estimated at up to 700 cubic centimeters,
significantly larger than its Australopithecine predecessors and, on average, larger than that of habilis. Some fossil evidence suggests they may have been surprisingly tall, potentially exceeding 180 centimeters. They were upright walkers, navigating the savannas and the lush corridors along ancient waterways. But beyond these bare facts, their lives are shrouded in silence. The fossil record for Rudolfensis is sparse, offering us only fleeting glimpses. We are left to wonder, to speculate about the life of this other, parallel humanity. Each fragment of bone we unearth is not just an answer, but a question. A quiet reminder that the story of our own becoming is written in stone, yet filled with the ghosts of worlds we can never truly know.
The earliest figures is believed they moved through a world not yet their own. Surviving through hunting and gatherings were not so much manufactured as they were found. A stone with a sharp edge, a heavy branch for defense. Their existence was a testament to adaptation, using the raw materials of the earth as they were, without significant alteration. Then, in the year 2013, the scientific community was shaken by a discovery of truly unique proportions. Deep within the Rising Star cave system near Johannesburg, two speleologists squeezed through a fissure, descending into a chamber previously unknown to the modern world. The Dinaledi Grotto. What they found there, on the floor of a space measuring merely 1 by 9 meters, was breathtaking. Lying almost undisturbed by time were the remains of 15 individuals, belonging to a species of primitive human never before seen.
Once professional anthropologists studied the find, this new branch of our family tree was given a name: Homo naledi. The collection was remarkable. Skeletons of adults, adolescents, and even children, all together in one place. The sheer remoteness of the chamber, the treacherous and narrow path required to reach it, explains why this silent congregation had remained hidden for so long. The journey into Dinaledi was so difficult, in fact, that it sparked a revolutionary theory. Researchers speculated that the path was just as perilous in Naledi's time. Why then were they here? Some have proposed a staggering possibility that these ancient hominins intentionally carried their deceased kin into this deep, dark place. Such an act would suggest the presence of the most rudimentary funeral rites, a behavior once thought to be the exclusive domain of far more recent, culturally advanced humans.
The mystery only deepened. Faint, dark traces on the cave ceiling led some to wonder if they were the soot-stained remnants of torches, meaning these beings might have illuminated their path into the abyss. Beside one of the skeletons lay a single piece of stone, a tantalizing object that perhaps bears the marks of deliberate shaping. But for now, definite answers to these riddles remain elusive. The dark patches on the ceiling, the depressions in the cave floor, and of the Dinaledi chamber, shrouded in profound mystery.
Strangely enough, another pivotal species in the human story, Homo heidelbergensis, was for a long time overlooked by the very scientists who sought to understand our evolution. The first discoveries linked to Heidelberg man occurred in the mid-19th century, a time when the scientific world was already quite familiar with Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons. But this crucial intermediate link, the bridge between the more primitive Erectus and the highly developed later Sapiens, simply didn't capture the same attention. And yet, the Heidelbergensis, who thrived across Africa, Europe, and Asia from 800,000 to 130,000 years ago, possessed a fascinating array of traits and skills. In terms of brain size, they had drawn remarkably close to modern humans. They were the first to begin constructing something akin to proper dwellings, and the first to produce tools of consistent quality and function. But their single greatest achievement, the one that would forever alter the human trajectory, was the taming of fire. At hominin sites dating back 400,000 years,
Evidence of hearths is conspicuously absent. But by 350,000 years ago, the picture changes completely. The charred bones and ancient ash of controlled fires appear in caves and open-air sites across the Old World. This was more than just a tool. It was the conquest of the night, the birth of the hearth as the heart of a community, and the dawn of a new, irreversible era in our long journey out of the dark.
A great dispersal was underway, a quiet, inexorable movement that would rewrite the story of our world. With new tools and a growing mastery of fire, humanity began to push out of its ancestral cradle and into the temperate climates of awaiting Eurasia. It is here, in this ancient expansion, that our family tree began to branch in profound and fateful ways.
The prevailing view holds that a wave of these pioneers, the hominin known as Homo heidelbergensis, ventured into Europe and, over millennia of isolation, became the ancestors of the Neanderthals. This critical divergence is thought to have occurred around 300,000 years ago. Meanwhile, back in the vast landscapes of Africa, the populations who remained would embark on a different journey. From their lineage, perhaps 100 or 200,000 years ago, our own direct ancestors, Homo sapiens, would arise. But the fossil record is a notoriously fragmented book, and it's possible the split happened even earlier, the paths of our ancestors and their Heidelberg cousins diverging in a deeper, more distant past. For immense stretches of time, these populations on different continents were utterly alone, separated by impassable seas and mountains. It was this profound isolation that sculpted their descendants into such different forms, creating a planet of distinct human types. The Heidelberg people themselves were powerfully built, a bridge between the ancient and the modern. In many ways, they resembled the Nede, the ancestral features of their forebears. They possessed lopping chins set in powerful jaws. Their foreheads were low, yet inside these formidable craniums, a new kind of mind was stirring. And while their faces were archaic, their dental arcade, the curve of their teeth, had already acquired the familiar shape we see in ourselves today.
They were not short. The average male stood between 165 and 175 centimeters, often taller than his Neanderthal descendants. The women were, as is typical, slightly smaller. There are even tantalizing fossil fragments from the African branch, suggesting some individuals may have reached an astonishing 2 meters in height.
They moved across the land in small intiants of gathering wild plants and the high-stakes risk of the hunt. We can imagine them, several clans coming together for a great seasonal drive, their combined strength and strategy overwhelmingly different from the hunter-gatherer tribes that have survived into the modern era, their existence dictated by the seasons and the movement of game.
Yet, they were more than just successful hunters. Beyond their man-made shelters and their command of the hearth, a deeper humanity was beginning to blossom. Archaeological finds whisper stories of compassion, remains of individuals with severe injuries or infirmities who lived on for years, clear evidence that they were cared for by the weaker and more vulnerable members of their group. The very structure of their fossilized brains suggests the capacity for primitive speech, the first stirrings of complex, shared thought. And then there are the glimmers of something more. The faintest hints of ritual, of ceremony surrounding the dead. A tool, dated to 500,000 years ago, is found to be not only functional, but symmetrical, balanced, and shaped with an eye for beauty that served no practical purpose. We find ochre and other simple pigments, raw materials for adornment or art. This was a people becoming socialized, a people developing the first abstract concepts of an inner, symbolic world. This story was not confined to Africa and Europe. Far to the east, on the island of Java, another branch of this ancient humanity lived and died. Known as Ngandong Man or Solo Man, their story was unearthed in the early 1930s. There, along the ancient banks of the Solo River, the fossilized remains of 12 individuals were discovered: 8 adults, 1 child, and 3 skeletons of indeterminate age. Dating these ghosts has proven immensely difficult. Different methods yield a staggering range, placing them anywhere from 143,000 to an incredible 546,000 years in the past.
They are a testament to how little we truly know, and how vast the human story really is. These early people, with their powerful bodies and burgeoning minds, were laying the groundwork for everything that was to come. The first time an ancestor chose beauty over mere function, the first time a group chose to protect its weakest member rather than abandon them, was not just a footnote in history. It was, perhaps, the very moment we began to define what our own humanity would one day mean. Along the winding banks of the Solo River in Java, the earth holds a silent memory. Here, buried in ancient sediment, lie the skulls of a lost people, the Javan Tropus. In their very structure, we see a close kinship with the famous hominins of our past, the Pithecanthropus and Sinanthropus. The cranium reveals its secrets: an oval contour, a forehead that slopes sharply back from the brow, and a distinctly protruding occipital region at the rear of the skull. Inside this bony vault, the brain of an adult reached an average volume of 1,100 cubic centimeters, a mind capable of navigating a complex and dangerous world. From the scattered remains, science has been able to precisely reconstruct only one individual, a female. She stood, it is estimated, at 158 centimeters tall and weighed around 50 kilograms. The males, we can safely assume, were somewhat larger, more robust. They walked not through dense jungle, but through open, sun-dappled woodlands. Their world was shared with a caste of giants, elephants, powerful tapirs, tigers that stalked the undergrowth, and formidable river buffalo. And in this world, they were not passive observers. Finds of the simplest stone and wooden flakes tell a crucial story. It is the story of a dawning intellect, the ability to see a tool within a rock, to shape the natural world, however crudely, to their own end.
Constant search for sustenance. But there are darker suggestions. Whispers of cannibalism, a grim reality of survival in a time before mercy. For one group, the end was not slow, but terrifyingly swift. The remains discovered by the blanket of ash. As a species, their time was also running out. Beginning roughly 125,000 years ago, the climate shifted. The open woodlands they knew so well began to retreat, choked out by the inexorable advance of tropical rainforests. Their world vanished, and so did they. Modern science is clear. The people of the Solo River were not the direct ancestors of the island's later inhabitants. They were a side branch on our sprawling family tree, a dead end. The region would remain empty of human life for millennia until a new wave of settlement began between 55 and 40,000 years ago.
Then, in the year 2003, on another Indonesian island, a discovery was made that would rewrite human prehistory. In a limestone cave on Flores, researchers unearthed the fossilized remains of several truly extraordinary people. Their average height was barely 1 meter. For this, they were given an unofficial but enduring nickname, the Hobbits. Initial analysis suggested they were astonishingly recent, with ages ranging from 74,000 down to just 12,000 years old. This implied they were the last surviving human species to share the planet with our own. But the story, as it so often does, grew more complex. Later, more rigorous dating methods pushed their extinction back.
We now believe Homo floresiensis vanished no earlier than 60,000 years ago. Yet the tools found alongside them, simple but effective, span an immense period, from 200,000 to as little as 50,000 years ago. Herein lies the profound mystery. Despite a brain volume of just 400 cubic centimeters, no larger than a chimpanzee's, these diminutive people were apparently quite sophisticated. They were intelligent, resourceful survivors. Their bodies were a bizarre mosaic of traits. They possessed short legs, while their hands and wrists retained a very primitive structure. And yet, their thumbs were bed, with a projecting facial structure and prominent brow ridges.
They were an isolated island population, a product of evolution in a bottle, and their island was a place of monsters. The hobbits lived in the shadow of Komodo dragons, giant carnivorous birds, and other predators, many of which dwarfed them in size. Survival demanded cunning. Their diet consisted mainly of plants, but they were also capable hunters, taking down small animals and birds. They did so using their primitive tools, and crucially, they knew the secret of fire. They were not a simple caricature, but a testament to evolution's strange and unpredictable pathways. They show us that the story of humanity is not a single linear march toward ourselves, but a rich and tangled epic, with entire worlds of experience that rose, flourished, and were ultimately lost to time.
On the isolated Indonesian island of Flores, an evolutionary drama unfolded, leaving behind one of paleoanthropology's most profound riddles. Here, in a world seemingly lost to time, lived a species of tiny human, no taller than a modern child, who have come to be known as the Hobbits. Their scientific name, Homo floresiensis, does little to capture the sheer mystery of their existence. The central question, one that continues to divide scientists, is not just who they were, but from where they came. One prevailing theory casts them as the descendants of an Asian branch of Homo erectus, a widespread and successful ancestor who, upon being marooned on Flores, began to shrink. It's a phenomenon known as insular dwarfism, a common evolutionary path for large species trapped in island ecosystems with limited resources. Another, more radical hypothesis suggests a far deeper ancestry, tracing the Hobbits' lineage all the way back to the more primitive Homo habilis of Africa. A third school of thought even posits that they were an offshoot of our own species, Homo sapiens, an intrepid vanguard who ventured into the islands of the Pacific far earlier than the great Mehever ancestor found their way to Flores. It was the island itself that sculpted them into their diminutive form. But a discovery made in 2017 shattered this comfortable consensus. In the very same region, researchers unearthed the remains of an even smaller, more ancient hominin. The fossils were dated to an astonishing 700,000 years ago. This meant the ancestors of the Flores people were either already small when they arrived, or they shrank with evolutionary speed. More perplexingly, it pushed their arrival on the island so far back in time that it suggests a journey straight from Africa, a journey across thousands of miles of open ocean, an impossible feat for any hominin of that era. The only plausible, if highly speculative, explanation is a cataclysm to sea and deposited them on this remote shore. It remains a theory without evidence, a ghost story told to explain an impossible journey. Perhaps one day, the fossil of an intermediate species will be found, a missing link that finally clarifies the true origin of this enigmatic people. While one mystery endures on a tropical island, another was unearthed in the frozen, windswept heart of Siberia. Here, in the Altai Mountains, lies Denisova Cave. Its location and configuration are so ideal for shelter, it is no surprise that for millennia, it served as a refuge for ancient peoples. Excavations, which began back in 1977,
peeled back layers of time, revealing the expected remains of our own ancestors and their cousins, the Neanderthals. But in 2008, the cave offered up a surprise that would rewrite human history. By then, science had a new, almost miraculous tool: the ability to extract and sequence DNA from ancient bones.
Genetic codes of Neanderthals and early sapiens had already been mapped, giving researchers a baseline for comparison. When they analyzed the DNA from a tiny fragment of a finger bone and a single molar found in the cave, the results were utterly confounding. The genetic sequence belonged to no known group. It was not Neanderthal. It was not Homo sapiens. It was a completely new lineage, a ghost branch of the human family tree that had lived and thrived in these mountains. 2 more teeth, discovered in 1984, were retrospectively assigned to this new species, the Denisovans.
From such a paltry collection of remains, it is nearly impossible to reconstruct their appearance or way of life. But their genome tells a story of its own, whispering that they were a people of dark skin, dark hair, and brown eyes. Yet the most profound revelation was not who they were, but what they did. The genetic record showed, with irrefutable clarity, that Cro-Magnons, Neanderthals, and Denisovans were not entirely separate. They met, they interacted, and they produced children together. Today, the genetic legacy of these encounters is woven into the fabric of modern humanity. The echoes of Neanderthal DNA are found most strongly in the peoples of Europe and the Middle East. But the Denisovan signature tells a far different story of ancient migration. Their genetic trail is found thousands of miles from that Siberian cave, carried in the DNA of the living populations of the South Pacific, all the way to Australia.
The clean, simple tree of human evolution, with its neat branches, has been torn apart. In its place is a far more complex and beautiful image, a tangled, braided river of life. We are not one line, but a mosaic, a composite being carrying the faint genetic ghosts of all the human worlds that came before. The story of our ancient family is written not just in stone and bone, but in the ghostly signatures of our own DNA. Deep within that code lies evidence of the Denisovans, a people so elusive they are known to us almost exclusively through genetic analysis. Many researchers are still hesitant to even grant them the status of a distinct species. They exist without an official Latin name, a phantom branch of humanity described by science, yet not fully claimed by it. Their journey, as we can piece it together, was a great exodus of its own. It is believed their ancestors left Africa entirely separately from our own, forging a path across the vastness of Asia. They pushed through the islands of the Pacific, perhaps reaching the shores of modern-day Indonesia. From there, they may lead them to the remote Siberian cave that holds their name. And yet, the greatest mystery they left us is not where they went, but who they met. For within their genetic legacy is a whisper of another encounter, evidence that the Denisovans interbred with a fourth, entirely unknown type of human, a lineage lost to time and science. This complex tapestry of ancient peoples was not always a peaceful one. Throughout its long and often brutal history, humanity has found that the most reliable tool for resolving conflict is a weapon. We have waged wars for resources, for politics, for faith, for race. And many scientists now believe that when our own direct ancestors met their cousins, the Neanderthals, the encounter could have ended in only one way: a war of annihilation. For millennia, the simplest, safest solution for a tribe confronting a stranger was to eliminate the threat. Any outsider, anyone who differed in appearance or custom, was a potential danger.
And when that stranger was so profoundly different, so physically alien, the conversation, if there ever was one, would have been brutally short. For the Cro-Magnons and Neanderthals, the chances for a peaceful resolution over territory were vanishingly slim.
Our ancestors, the Cro-Magnons, were the newcomers. They arrived in Europe and the Near East nearly 70,000 years after the Neanderthals had already made it their home. And the two groups could not have looked more different. The Neanderthals were the original inhabitants, masters of the Ice Age landscape. They were shorter, more powerfully built, with broad, sloping chin, all adaptations to a frigid world. Their height rarely surpassed 165 centimeters.
Then came the invaders. The Cro-Magnon physique was a world away, a structure honed in the tropical climates of Africa. They were tall, with some individuals standing over 180 centimeters, and possessed the long limbs of a people built for heat and distance. Their faces, remarkably, would not look out of place among the populations of Earth today. Despite an almost complete genetic kinship, these two branches of humanity stood eye to eye as beings from different worlds.
This first great war, this planetary conflict between two human species, was more than a battle for territory. It was a template for annihilation, a chilling precedent for how our species confronts the other. The echoes of that ancient struggle for dominance, for the very right to exist, have never truly faded. They are a permanent, haunting feature of the human condition itself. At the very beginning, in the long twilight struggle for a new Earth, they were almost identical. The brain of a newborn Neanderthal child was a mirror image of that of a Cro-Magnon infant, holding the same nascent promise. But as the years passed, a subtle yet profound divergence began to take shape, a difference that would ultimately define victor and vanquished. Though the total cranial volume of the adults was remarkably similar, the internal architecture was beginning to tell two very different stories. Many now believe the Neanderthal's fatal flaw was rooted in a less developed cerebellum. This intricate, densely packed region of the brain is far more than a center for motor control. It is the seat of coordination, of memory, of imagination. And most critically, it governs the complex nuances of language and the intricate dance of social skills. Herein lay the advantage of the Cro-Magnons. Their ability to unite in relatively large, coordinated groups to solve common problems became their single most important survival trait. Neanderthals, by contrast, lived in smacks of a primitive, emerging society. Their more gregarious competitors simply out-socialized them. And yet, to dismiss them as simple is to do them a grave injustice. Archaeological finds whisper a different story, a story of compassion and budding intellect. They understood medicine, caring for their elderly and their injured, nursing them back to health. There is compelling evidence that in their minds, the first stirrings of religion and art were beginning to take hold. They were not brutes. They were another kind of human. The simplest explanation for their extinction is that we, Homo sapiens, destroyed them. But it is entirely possible that no single global armed conflict ever tokenized Cro-Magnons gradually, inexorably, displaced the indigenous inhabitants of Europe, pushing them into regions less and less favorable for life. This process, this slow-motion annihilation, stretched out over some 30 to 35,000 years. As the new masters of the continent spread out from Africa, they adapted with astonishing speed to the colder climate, creating more sophisticated tools and deadlier weapons. Neanderthals relied on primitive, heavy spears for thrusting and clubs for close-quarters combat. Intimate, dangerous work. Their rivals, by the end of this long confrontation,
were successfully employing spear throwers, an innovation that allowed them to hurl a lighter dart with incredible force and accuracy over much greater distances. It meant Cro-Magnon hunters were more efficient, safer, and more successful in securing sustenance. While both species used drive hunting techniques, the superior coordination on more game with less risk.
But perhaps the most critical distinction, the one that truly sealed their fate, was written not in stone points, but in the very chemistry of their bones. An analysis of Neanderthal remains reveals a fatal inflexibility in their diet. Each group was a specialist. Some consumed only the meat of local hoofed animals, others gathered specific plants, still others relied solely on fish or marine life. This specialization was efficient in a stable world, but when that world changed, when the familiar food source vanished, either through migration or overhunting, the group faced a catastrophic problem. In these harsh new conditions, it was the children who perished first. A falling birth rate and rising mortality led, with mathematical certainty, to the extinction of a species. The Cro-Magnons, meanwhile, were generalists. Their diet was remarkably consistent regardless of where they lived, a pragmatic mix of whatever the land offered. They were survivors. They were adaptable.
When the world of the Neanderthals shifted beneath their feet, they could not shift with it. It was a slow, quiet fading, a demographic winter from which they would never recover. Their story is not a simple tale of conquest, but a profound lesson on the razor's edge between specialization and adaptability. They are the ghost in our own genome, a silent reminder that on this planet, survival has never been a birthright. It is a prize, earned only by those who are willing to change.
In the vast frozen landscapes of Pleistocene Europe and Asia, two distinct branches of humanity walked the earth. Their diets, drawn from the land, were a mirror of their world, a foundation of plant life, supplemented by the hunt. But the story of that hunt, of how flesh was rendered by fire, changed dramatically over the millennia. The hearths of our ancestors tell a story of evolving mastery, a culinary journey from the raw and rudimentary to the complex and considered. The closer we move to our own time, the more sophisticated the methods become, the more diverse the menu. For decades, we have known that the genetic divide between Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon was not an impassable chasm. They shared a common ancestor, a root from which their lineages diverged somewhere between 200,000 and perhaps even 1,000,000 years ago. This shared heritage was profound enough to allow for common offspring. And the evidence is not buried in the distant past. It is written into the very fabric of our being. Within the DNA of modern humans, a ghost lingers. Between 1% and 4% of our genome is a direct inheritance from our Neanderthal cousins. This suggests their end was not a simple, clean extermination. Some, it seems, were not felled by the sharpened flint of arrival, but were instead assimilated, their bloodlines absorbed into the rising tide of a more successful human species.
But to imagine a peaceful merging of peoples is to ignore the grim evidence etched into bone. The conflicts of interest, the struggle for territory and resources, often ended tragically. We must not believe that the Cro-Magnons, arriving from Africa, simply swept their relatives from the face of the earth. Excavations at the ancient campsites of both peoples paint a far more brutal picture. The Neanderthals were not lambs to the slaughter. In the cold earth, a silent story is told. Scientists regularly unearth remains bearing the unmistakable marks of violent death. Skulls fractured by the force of a thrown spear, ribs pierced by a flint point. And more chillingly, they find bones scored with the precise marks of stone tools, bones that have been deliberately broken open. They find human bones bearing the marks of human teeth. The implication is inescapable.
In this unforgiving world, both our direct ancestors and their competitors regularly consumed their vanquished foes.
Yet, was brute force the only factor? Some researchers propose other, more subtle advantages. American scientist Pat Shipman posits a revolutionary theory that the key to Cro-Magnon dominance was not a better spear, but a better friend. They forged an alliance that would change the course of history, the domestication of the wolf. This profound symbiosis, a partnership of human intellect and canine senses, would have made them exponentially more effective hunters and more formidable defenders. While Neanderthals struggled to find enough food to survive the harsh winters, the Cro-Magnons, flanked by their wolf-dog companions, thrived.
Shipman also points to another, almost invisible mutation that may have granted our ancestors a critical edge. Around this same time, a new dominant trait became fixed in the Cro-Magnon population. The sclera, the area around the iris, turned a stark white. This seemingly minor change had staggering consequences. For the first time, it was possible to know precisely where another pern verbal cues. This simple biological tweak fostered a new level of social organization, allowing for complex, coordinated strategies that a Neanderthal hunting party could never match.
Other theories point not to a Cro-Magnon strength, but to a Neanderthal vulnerability. They may have been the victims of a biological catastrophe. Having left Africa a staggering 150,000 years before our own ancestors, their bodies had no memory of the continent's microbial landscape. The Cro-Magnons, migrating out much later, carried within them an invisible arsenal of pathogens, microorganisms to which they had developed immunity, but which were utterly alien to the Neanderthals. The deadliest weapon, then, was not a sharpened spear, but something unseen, carried in the breath and blood of the newcomers, sparking epidemics that swept through a population with no defense.
And finally, there is the humbling possibility that humanity played no role at all.
Some evidence suggests that nature itself delivered the final blow. In the very regions where Neanderthal populations were most concentrated, the climate was undergoing violent, catastrophic shifts. Perhaps, in the end, it was not the arrival of a rival that sealed their fate, but the unforgiving power of a changing world. Their story, then, is not one of simple defeat. It is a complex tapestry of conflict, assimilation, and perhaps cosmic misfortune. They did not truly vanish. They live on, a whisper in our genetic code, a silent testament to a time when we were not alone, and a chilling reminder of how fine the line is between existence and extinction.
A series of colossal volcanic eruptions tore through the ancient world, spewing ash and sulfur into the high atmosphere. The sun grew dim, a pale disk in a perpetual gray twilight. On the ground, temperatures plummeted, and the very composition of the air and water began to change. For the Neanderthals, a people of formidable strength and resilience, this was the beginning of the end. The great herds they had hunted for millennia, the woolly mammoth, the steppe bison, could not adapt. Their populations crashed, and with them, the primary source of sustenance for the Neanderthal clans vanished. A cold, slow death by starvation began to stalk their camp. In the grand, unsentimental calculus of nature, competition between species occupying the same ecological niche is an iron law. As the world chilled, another human species, our own ancestors, pressed into these lands, better adapted perhaps, or simply luckier. It is a futile exercise to pinpoint a single cause for the Neanderthals' disappearance. It was a convergence of pressures, a changing climate, a failing food supply, and the arrival of a rival. One can't help but wonder, what if circumstances had been different? What if they had been the ones to weather the storm? We can imagine a world built on their terms, a human society governed by different laws, a different way of thinking,
of being. But whether that world would have been better or worse than the one we have inherited is a question that will forever remain in the realm of ghosts and shadow.
Let us cast our minds back further to an even more profound extinction, a far greater planetary reset. What if a human being, a creature of today, were to find themselves standing on the Earth in the immediate aftermath of the dinosaurs' reign? For tens of millions of years, our mammalian ancestors were but bit players on a global stage dominated by titans. They scurried through the undergrowth of a giant's world, creatures of the night, never daring to contest the apex of the food chain. Their chance, their opening to inherit the Earth, came only when that world was shattered. To understand what our lone human would face, we must first dismiss a simple biological impossibility. Could a human have evolved naturally in that time? The answer, when stripped of all sentiment, is brutally simple. No. The specific evolutionary pressures and opportunities that led to the first primates would not arise for many more millions of years. So for this thought experiment, we must imagine our humans simply appearing. An anomaly in time, standing on the threshold of a new epoch at the very end of the Cretaceous period, some 66 million years ago. At first glance, the world might seem survivable. The continents, though not yet in their modern positions, were drifting apart from the last great land masses. The planet was a greenhouse, wrapped in a thick, humid atmosphere. Vast tropical jungles would have covered much of the land, a landscape not entirely alien to people living today in the Amazon, the Congo, or Southeast Asia. The climate, though oppressively hot and wet, was fundamentally acceptable for human life. But this initial assessment is a deadly illusion. It fails to account for the reason the dinosaurs are gone. It fails to see that this world is not at peace, but is instead reeling from a cataclysm of unimaginable scale. The greatest threat is not a surviving predator, but the sky itself. The Chicxulub impactor is already struck, tearing a wound in the planet more than 100 miles wide.
The immediate firestorm has passed, but the true killer, a prolonged global winter, has just begun. Billions of tons of pulverized rock and soot have been blasted into the stratosphere, shrouding the planet in a thick, dark veil that blots out the sun. Photosynthesis on a global scale has ground to a halt. The great forests, the very foundation of the food web, are dying. As the darkness persists for months, perhaps years, the world freezes. Acid rain, a toxic brew of sulfur and nitrogen, pours from the sky, poisoning the soil and turning the oceans acidic. Our human survivor is not a pioneer in a new world, but a ghost on a dying one, witnessing the complete collapse of an entire planetary ecosystem. There is nothing to hunt, nothing to gather. Every living thing is starving in the dark. To survive in such a world is not a matter of skill or intelligence. It is a matter of being small enough to hide, of having a metabolism slow enough to endure, of being able to eat the detritus of a fallen world, insects, roots, decay. We are none of those things. The mammals that made it through this bottleneck were tiny, burrowing creatures, our own distant ancestors.
To be human is to be the product of an impossibly long and specific chain of cosmic and biological luck. Take us out of that sequence, place us in the deep past, and our celebrated intelligence and adaptability become tragically insufficient. We are not masters of the planet, but rather the fortunate children of a world that was, by chance, rebuilt in a way that eventually allowed for our existence.
66 million years ago, the world ended. It did not end in fire, though there was fire. It ended in shadow. A celestial hammer blow, an asteroid of mountain-sized proportions, struck the planet, and in an instant the long reign of the dinosaurs was over.
A concussion of unimaginable force ripped across the continents, flattening primordial forests as if they were blades of grass. The oceans, violently displaced, rose up into liquid mountain ranges, tsunamis 100 meters high that scoured the coastlines bare. The Earth's crust, fractured by the impact, groaned in protest. Volcanoes that had slumbered for millennia awoke in a global chorus, spewing their own ash and poison into an already traumatized atmosphere. And then, the darkness came. A thick, suffocating shroud of pulverized rock and volcanic soot was thrown into the highest reaches of the sky, wrapping the globe in a veil of perpetual twilight. Sunlight, the engine of all life, could no longer reach the surface. This was the beginning of the long impact winter. Temperatures plummeted, photosynthesis ceased. The great plant life of the Cretaceous, the vast fern prairies and cycad forests, withered and died in the gloom. And with the collapse of the food chain, so too did the animals that depended upon it.
Only the small and the meek inherited this broken world. The largest mammal to witness the dawn of this new, terrifying era weighed no more than half a kilogram. A furtive creature, hiding in the ruins of a lost world. Now, imagine this. Suppose a group of our own ancestors, time travelers cast adrift, missed the cataclysm itself. Imagine they arrived on a planet that was, by then, relatively calm, finding themselves not in the fire, but in the ash, in the very heart of this global winter. Let us grant them the knowledge of their descendants, the ability to spark a fire against the biting cold, to construct warm shelters from the debris, and to stitch together whatever clothing they could find. The fundamental question remains, what would they have eaten?
For the first 100,000 years after the impact, the planet was a ghost of its former self. We must remember, the trees we know today did not exist. The lush, tropical jungles of the late Cretaceous were composed primarily of colossal ferns. While one might perhaps fashion a crude shelter from their fibrous trunks and branches, there was no fruit to be found. The evolution of fruit-bearing trees was still several 100,000 years in the future, and a human being could hardly survive by chewing on the bitter leaves of a fern.
Hunting, then. Surely that was the answer. But hunting what? The surviving mammals and birds were, as we've said, incredibly small. To sustain even a small band of humans, the hunt would have to be relentless, an almost industrial-scale slaughter of these tiny, fleeting creatures. This seems a desperate, almost impossible task in a landscape of constant cold, choking smoke, and near total darkness.
One might recall that the extinction event was less severe for aquatic life. In the rivers and shallow seas, many species of fish, crocodiles, and turtles endured. Perhaps, by living near these waterways, our travelers might have found a source of protein, a chance to pull some meager sustenance from the murky depths. But this solution presents its own cruel paradox. You might eat, but you would still freeze. It is a formidable challenge. To fashion warm winter clothing from fish scales or a turtle shell. And yet, life is tenacious. In the aftermath of the Great Dying, nature began the slow, arduous process of recovery. Over the course of that first 100,000 years of the new Cenozoic era, biodiversity began to return. The climate shifted, the long winter gradually receded as the dust settled from the sky. The first palm trees appeared on Earth, a sign of a warming world. The mammals, seizing their opportunity, began to grow. They reached the size of modern raccoons, perhaps small dogs, weighing around 5 or 6 kilograms. This explosion in size was driven by a crucial coevolution, the appearance of nut-bearing plants,
offering a dense new source of calorie.
Had our travelers arrived then, in that recovering world, their story might have been different. The hunt would have been meaningful, the climate more forgiving, their chances of survival immeasurably greater. It is a humbling thought. Survival, it seems, is not merely a matter of strength or ingenuity, but of arriving at the right moment in the story of a world determined, always, to begin again.
The great dying had passed. The reign of the giant lizards was over, consigned to fossil memory by a rock from the heavens. 1,000 years, a mere heartbeat in geologic time, the world healed. And then, in the planet's recovering flora, another revolution took place. The first leguminous plants appeared.
This was more than just a new type of vegetation. It was the key, unlocking a new potential for life. These plants, rich in protein, offered a far more efficient source of energy, and the mammals of this new dawn responded. Their average weight swelled to around 50 kilograms, a foundation upon which greater forms could be built. It was a world of opportunity, a world that could have, perhaps, supported us. Had humanity arrived on this ancient stage, the seeds of agriculture might have been sown millions of years ahead of schedule, much as the primitive civilizations of South America would one day harness these same bean and pea families to build their first states.
The planet's full recovery from the cataclysm, scientists now believe, took nearly 1 million years. But for mammals to truly inherit the Earth, to reach the stature of the modern horse or bison, required a far longer journey. 10 million years would pass after the dinosaurs' vanishing act before such sizes were achieved, placing us roughly 56 million years in the past. The continents continued their colossal, silent drift. The climate shifted in cycles of warmth and cool. The world was no longer a single, suffocating jungle. The forests were now composed of trees we might almost recognize, casting familiar shadows on an alien ground. And in these forests, across these plains, roamed creatures that could have become quarry for a nascent humanity. Or perhaps something more.
Imagine the encounters, the dangers. One of the apex predators of this early Cenozoic world was a beast known as Andrewsarchus. Weighing up to 900 kilograms, it was the largest carnivorous land mammal the world has ever known. Outwardly, it bore a terrifying resemblance to a colossal wolf, yet its true lineage connects it, bizarrely, to the modern pig. For any early human, it would have been a waking nightmare. But history teaches us strange lessons. We know the first animal to be tamed was the fearsome wolf. Its predatory instinct turned into a hunter's greatest asset. Could this same story have played out with Andrewsarchus? Perhaps not this particular titan, but one of its smaller kin, brought into the human circle as an impossibly powerful ally.
And there were larger things still, far larger.
In the lands that would one day become Asia lived the distant ancestors of the rhinoceros, the great Indracotheres. They were the most massive land mammals in our planet's history, true behemoths of flesh and bone. Standing 6 meters at the shoulder, 8 meters in length, these giants could weigh up to 20 tons. If our own ancestors could devise ways to hunt the mighty mammoth in great drives, they surely could have conceived of a plan to bring down this mountain of meat. But what if they had aimed higher than mere spine-living alternatives to trucks, to cranes, or to tanks, depending on the ambitions of their masters?
Not all was monstrous. A more familiar shape galloped across these ancient landscapes. Hipparion, an extinct member of the horse family, was a global success story. Its fossil remains are found scattered from Europe to Africa to North America. a testament to its adaptability. It was a world teeming with potential, with paths not taken. The creatures of that lost epoch could have been our livestock, our beasts of burden, our gods, and our demons. They would have shaped our myths, our cultures, and our very understanding of our place in the natural order. We became the masters of the world we were given, but it is a humbling thought to imagine the kind of people we might have become had we been forced to share it with giants.
The great dying is over. Fangi world. This epoch, a chapter in Earth's history unfolding in the wake of extinction, could rightly be called the Age of Birds. For in the vacuum left by the tyrant lizards, a new kind of predator rose to dominance. They were the Phorus racids, the creatures we now call terror birds. Towering, flightless carnivores, they hunted the emerging mammalian life with a terrifying efficiency in a thunderous pursuit.
Scrabbling for purchase in this violent new world is a creature of immense, though still hidden destiny, Hyracotherium. It stood at a modest 1.5 meters in height, bearing only a faint resemblance to the modern horse it would one day sire. It was too small, too slight, to be ridden with any comfort, but perhaps, just perhaps, this humble progenitor of the equine line could have been harnessed as a simple draft animal. In this era, it was merely prey, another fleeting meal for the avian kings who ruled the land, and the terror was not confined to the ground. Soaring in the skies above was a true titan, Argentavis, a bird of prey whose wingspan stretched an almost unbelievable 7 meters, its body weighing a staggering 70 kilograms. It was the undisputed sovereign of the air.
Into this brutal theater, one must wonder, what if we had been there? If humanity had emerged not a mere 200,000 years ago, but 50 million years earlier, could we have survived? The chances, faced with such formidable predators on land and in the air, would have been perilously slim. Yet, with each passing million years, the planet grew more hospitable, the conditions slowly shaping themselves into a world we might recognize. Perhaps, had we been given that 50 million year head start, we might have found a way to carve out a niche, to thrive in the realities of that time.
This thought experiment, however, forces a far more fundamental question. Where did we truly come from? For well over a century, the answer has seemed settled. Darwin's elegant, powerful theory of evolution is considered the official story of our species, tracing our lineage back through the mists of time to ancient primates, making us kin to the apes of today. It is a narrative accepted by the vast majority of the scientific community. But throughout history, there have always been those who felt a deep unease with the official position, those who looked at humanity and saw an anomaly.
Of all the dissenting views, one of the most compelling is the theory of our extraterrestrial origin. Proponents of this idea present a series of fascinating, if unsettling, arguments. Among the most cited researchers in this field is the ecologist Dr. Ellis Silver, who forwarded a radical version of this hypothesis, a version he called the prison planet theory. The theory suggests that a highly advanced alien civilization, approximately 200,000 years ago, began to exile its criminals, its dissidents, and other disturbers of the social order to a remote, undeveloped planet. In much the same way our own history saw the continent of Australia populated by convicts. That distant, primitive world was Earth.
Dr. Silver uses this narrative to explain why human beings seem so uniquely ill-adapted to the conditions of our own home world. These cosmic prisoners, he argues, while interbreeding with native trained, vulnerability to the sun's rays, our high rates of infant mortality compared to other mammals. Are these simply the awkward compromises of an ape that recently learned to walk upright? Or, as the hypothesis suggests, are they the lingering physiological echoes of a different world entirely? A world with gentler gravity, a dimmer sun. It's a profound and disturbing thought that our species' restless spirit, our endless search for meaning, and our perpetual feeling of being slightly out of place is not an evolutionary quirk, but the oldest, faintest memory we possess. A genetic memory of a home among the stars.
There is a fundamental dissonance in the human condition, a persistent low-grade hum of discontent that seems to defy circumstance. Proponents of a radical theory suggest this is not a product of modern stress or poor ecology, but something far deeper, a kind of species-wide homesickness. They argue that we are cosmic castaways, and this planet is not our home. This unsettling notion finds its first footing in the very architecture of our bodies. The human skeleton, they claim, is a map of maladaptation. Consider the chronic, debilitating back pain that plagues a vast majority of our species. From a dull ache in the lower lumbar to a sharp discomfort between the shoulder blades, it is an almost universal human experience. An ecologist named Dr. Ellis Silver points to this as damning evidence. He argues that our physiology was never designed for the specific gravitational pull of Earth. Our spines, he posits, evolved to bear a lighter load. Even the ratio of our feet to our overall body mass seems to whisper of a world with a gentler hold, a place where gravity was less of a tyrant. Of course, the counter-argument is immediate and powerful. Is this not simply the price of standing tall? Of all the creatures on this planet, only we walk on two limbs, a profound evolutionary trade-off that freed our hands, but perhaps condemned our backs to a lifetime of strain. Then there is the star that governs our world, the sun. For nearly every other creature on Earth, it is an unambiguous source of life. They bask in its warmth, their bodies perfectly attuned to its radiation. Yet we, the supposed apex species, are uniquely vulnerable. Our skin, for some reason stripped of a protective coat of fur, burns under its direct gaze. We cannot look towards it without squinting in pain, our eyes shielded from its full glory. And while other terrestrial eyes can perceive a far broader spectrum of light, ours seem curiously limited. Mainstream science offers plausible explanations, of course, evolutionary adaptations for a life spent moving between savanna and shade. But the question lingers. Why are we the only animal that seems to be in a constant, low-level conflict with our own star?
Perhaps the most compelling clue, however, is not written in our bones or on our skin, but in the silent, invisible rhythm that governs our sleep. It is our internal clock. Several sleep studies have yielded a fascinating and disruptive result. Left to their own devices, free from the cues of sunrise and sunset, human bodies do not naturally settle into a 24-hour cycle. Instead, our intrinsic biological rhythm, our circadian pacemaker, drifts closer to a day that is 25 hours long. For the theorists of our alien origin, this is the smoking gun. It is a ghost in our machine, a faint but persistent memory of a different world, a home planet that spun on its axis just a little more slowly than the Earth does.
Could it be that our anxieties, our aches, our peculiar relationship with the sun, and the very tempo of our lives are all just echoes? Echoes of a world we can no longer name, a home we subconsciously long to return to? Or are these simply the complex, beautiful, and sometimes painful signatures of being human? A species forged not in the perfection of some distant Eden, but in the chaotic and magnificent crucible of Earth itself.
We are creatures of the clock. our lives are governed by the inexorable turning of the earth, a 24-hour cycle of light and dark, of work and rest. But what if that fundamental rhythm is not our own? In a series of radical experiments, volunteers were sealed away from the world, in an environment stripped of all temporal cues. No windows to see the sun's passage, no clocks to mark the hours. They were left adrift in time, free to sleep and wake according to their own internal cadence. What emerged from that isolation was startling. For the majority of participants, the body did not settle into a 24-hour day. Instead, it defaulted to something far stranger, a cycle of 36 hours.
A day and a half, lived as one. It begs a profound question. Is this an echo of a forgotten past? Some researchers suggest that perhaps, in the deep mists of geologic time, the Earth itself spun at a different speed. But others whisper of a more radical explanation, that our internal clocks are tuned to the memory of another world entirely, a planet with a longer day, a place we once called home.
This dissonance, this feeling of being out of sync, echoes in the most fundamental act of creation, the crucible of human birth. Across the vast animal kingdom, the arrival of new life is a moment of primal efficiency. For most mammals, it is an event that passes with relative ease, free from catastrophic complication. Yet for humans, it is an ordeal. The birth of a human child is fraught with peril, a risk to the life of both the mother and the infant. Before the advent of modern medicine, it was a leading cause of death, a biological paradox. Why would evolution fashion a process so uniquely dangerous for its most intelligent species?
Professor Ellis Silver proposed a disquieting theory. He argued that these complications are the scars of ancient genetic tampering. Perhaps, he suggested, we are the descendants of a colony, an alien race that interbred with a native species on Earth, or whose own biology was altered to survive this new world. These changes, while making us more adapted to Earth's conditions, left behind a terrible side effect: a pelvic structure at odds with the size of our infant's skull. Of course, there is another explanation, one grounded firmly in our own evolutionary path. The moment our ancestors stood upright, walking on two legs, our skeletal architecture was forever changed. Our pelvis narrowed to support bipedal motion, and childbirth became the price of walking toward the horizon.
This vulnerability does not end in the birthing room. It defines our entire existence. A newborn foal can stand and run within hours. A kitten opens its eyes and explores within days. A human infant, by contrast, is utterly helpless, a state of dependency that lasts for years. Even as adults, we are creatures of profound fragility. We lack the thick hides of the rhinoceros, the claws of the tiger, the fangs of the wolf. We cannot outrun a horse, outswim a dolphin, or climb with the grace of a primate. We are born into this world naked and exposed, with virtually no natural defenses. But perhaps this apparent weakness is our greatest strength. While a cheetah is built for one thing, speed, and a bird is built for one thing, flight, humanity was built for everything, and for nothing. Our lack of specialization became our liberation. We could not run fast, so we domesticated the horse and invented the wheel. We could not fly, so we built machines of wood and steel to conquer the sky. Our defenselessness was not a flaw. It was the empty space that demanded the invention of tools, of society, of ingenuity itself. It is the price we pay for our boundless universality.
The mystery, however, runs deeper still.
woven into the very blueprint of our biology. Within the spiraling code of our DNA, some scientists claim to have found something that shouldn't be there. More than 200 distinct genes that appear to have no precedent in our evolutionary tree. Genetic ghosts. The conventional explanation is that these were acquired horizontally, from bacteria and other simple organisms over millions of years. But a more speculative school of thought sees them as something else, the last remnants of an extraterrestrial inheritance, the faint genetic signature of our cosmic ancestors. It is a claim many scientists refuse to even acknowledge, let alone accept, dismissing these sequences as junk or artifacts of a still incomplete understanding of our own genome. And so we are left with these fragments, these unsettling clues. A body clock that yearns for a longer day, a birthing precessinating a planet, and a genetic code that may contain messages from an unknown source. When taken together, they paint a portrait of a species haunted by a deep and persistent anxiety, a feeling of not quite belonging. Is it merely the burden of consciousness, or is it a faint genetic memory, an echo of a different gravity, a different air, and the light of another sun in another sky?
Among the more unsettling arguments for humanity's cosmic origin is one found not in the stars, but within ourselves. It is the pervasive sense of restlessness and anxiety, the rising tide of mental disorders, the quiet desperation that drives so many to the edge. Proponents of this theory suggest these are not mere malfunctions of the mind, but symptoms of a profound collective homesickness for a world we can no longer remember.
Yet, one need not look to distant galaxies for the source of our modern malaise. The specters of political conflict, of financial insecurity, of ecological collapse. These terrestrial woes are more than enough to fracture any psyche.
But what if the truth is a darker synthesis of these ideas?
An alternative theory posits we are not prisoners on this planet, but refugees, the last desperate survivors fleeing a world we ourselves had ruined. Considering humanity's relentless consumption of Earth's resources, one has to ask a chilling question. Is this the first time? Have we laid waste to more than one world before, carrying the seeds of our own destruction? From star to star?
With each passing year, the health of this planet deteriorates. Yet no technologies emerge to carry us to a new sanctuary. No great ships appear on the horizon to save us from ourselves. We are left to confront the unsettling prospect that our only home is the one we seem so intent on destroying, forever caught in a cycle written not in the stars, but in our own indelible nature.